that there is no real way to have it all. We should just enjoy what we do have. Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I love to talk about books. And welcome to part 2 of my October wrap up. I read 11 books in October, so I have decided to split the wrap up. Older books, backlist titles that I read in October are on my wrap up part 1, which I posted on Saturday, and I will link that up and down. And so today I'm going to talk to you about the more recent releases I read. These were all NetGalleys. So I've got no books to hold up because they were all on my Kindle, and I received these free of charge from the publishers in return for a review, but all of my opinions are, as always, honest. So I've got 6 books to get to, 1 5-star, 4 4-stars and a 3-star, and I'll be starting with my 5-star, but please do stick around for my lower rated books, because just because I didn't love them doesn't mean that you won't, and you might find some hidden gems. So the 5-star book that I read was Dear Reader by Cathy Rentzenbrink, and you know, this is a book about books and it's a memoir, and really I don't really think I need to say any more, but I will. This book is a total delight. I loved every single page of this. Cathy uses her love of books as a vehicle to tell her life story, or you could look at it as Cathy uses her life story as a vehicle for sharing her love of books. Whichever way you tip the scales, this book is just absolutely gorgeous. Books have been companions, therapists and beacons of light for Cathy throughout her life, through the bad times and the good times, and they also provided her with a career path when she wasn't sure where her life should go. And while sharing her story, she also reminisces about books that have meant a lot to her at those times, and shares lists of recommendations for anyone else who is looking for similar big love therapy. Cathy's love of books and reading is more than just a hobby, and as a former Waterstones bookseller myself, I really enjoyed her tales from the shop floor and also watching as her career developed in that world. But more than that, what I really enjoyed in this book was reading about her work with the prison population. As the daughter of an illiterate miner, Cathy helped her father learn to read, and she uses that and the passion that it sparked within her to encourage literacy in others. Books are the way that she is able to form connections with others, but also to form a connection and deeper understanding of herself. They help her through a family tragedy, and then years later she is able to process the emotions from that by writing a book herself. And so from selling books, she goes on to working for a literacy charity. She writes about books, she writes her own books. Like, Cathy has the kind of career that would make me absolutely hate her because I'm so jealous, but she is so warm and funny on the page that you can't hate Cathy. And her book recommendations are really good as well. I think any book she mentioned that I hadn't already read, I was instantly on Goodreads adding it to my TBR. So yeah, this is a really special book. If you love books and you love reading, then you should definitely pick up a copy of this. My second 5-star read came out on the 1st of September, and it's Ordinary Hazards by Bruno. And this is about Emma, who was a successful financier. Is that a term? If I just made that up? I don't know. She did really good stuff with like money and numbers, which clearly I don't. But yeah, successful in that area, and she's now found herself divorced and rudderless, and spends most of her evenings getting drunk at a local dive bar in a small American town. This book spans one such evening, and the drama heightens as more drinks are downed. Emma's story of loss and regret is revealed to us throughout the evening, and tensions threaten to bubble over between the other regular drinkers. I thought this book was magnificent. You know, it was as if we were sitting at the bar alongside all the other drinkers. The in-jokes and conversations and thinly veiled attacks were just passing by right in front of us, and it felt so authentic. But we also get Emma's internal dialogue as well, both her commentary of the evening, but also a slow kind of drip, drip, drip of her own story of the breakdown of her marriage and the loss that she has been left to carry in the aftermath. So this story is devastating, but it's also a really sharp observation of small town life. You know, that failure of living up to expectations and ultimately of grief. There's a lot of wit here too. Anyone who's ever stood among the regulars when you're ordering a drink, or maybe you were one of those regulars, will definitely be instantly familiar with that sense of camaraderie and banter, but also that undercurrent of discomfort that, you know, threatens to spill over into something a bit more dangerous if the wrong person says the wrong thing. I really loved this book, and it's so exciting to me that this is a debut. I'm really keen to see what she comes out with next, which I know could be a long wait since this book has only just been published. But yeah, I read this book at the start of October and it's still playing on my mind now. I really enjoyed it. And then on to my 4-star reads, the first of which is All Men Want to Know by Nina Bouraoui. This came out at the start of August, and I'm a little bit confused about it because I picked this up thinking it was a memoir. The premise made me think it was a memoir, and I read it as a memoir. But when I went to review it on Goodreads, I saw other people some were calling it a novel, some were calling it fictionalized autobiography, and I did a little bit of research into Nina Bouraoui, and this kind of auto-fiction seems to be her style. So I don't know what to class it as. I'm going to review it as a memoir because that's how I read it, and I thought it was really, really interesting. So it is told partly in the Algeria of Nina's childhood as civil war is breaking out, and also partly in 1980s Paris, where Nina is exploring her own sexuality and just navigating the gay scene at that time. And the book really looks at issues of identity. As the daughter of a white French woman and a black Algerian man, Nina doesn't really feel part of Algeria as it's liberating itself from French colonial rule, but she's also keenly aware that she is other from her French family. And as a young gay woman, Nina is striking up friendships and relationships with other people that frequent the Kathmandu nightclub, but she's also having to examine her own internal homophobias and try to find a way to be comfortable with who she is. The book also looks at her mother's experiences, both of being in a mixed race marriage, which I think the relationship started in the 60s, which was obviously a very different world, and that relationship wasn't particularly welcomed by her family. There are issues of sexual abuse in her mother's early childhood, and then there is an assault that happens in Algeria, which is the catalyst for the family returning to France. And really throughout this book, Nina is trying to know herself and know her place in the world. I really enjoyed the writing in this book, and I think I appreciate what I now assume to be like the fictionalized aspects of it, because it created a really strong narrative, and the writing is crisp but still insightful, and both timelines look at life experiences that I haven't had myself, and I absolutely love that in a book where I am getting to see what life is like for other people. My next 4-star read was Petals of Rain, A Mother's Memoir by Rica, Keenum, and this actually came out on the 14th of February, but I didn't request a NetGalley until much later than that. So this is, like I said, a memoir of Rica, coming from quite a turbulent childhood where there was sexual abuse by her mother's partner. Her mother didn't believe her, so that was obviously really destabilizing. And then she meets quite a charismatic, charming man when she's in her teens. They get married and she has 2 sons in her early 20s. But that man's charisma is a mask, and she ends up having to move to the other side of the country with her children to escape his erratic behaviour, his violence and his infidelity. She goes from clinging to religion during her marriage to using spirituality, particularly yoga, to help her deal with being a single mother and her youngest son's diagnosis with ADHD after he attempts to commit suicide at quite a young age. So with all of that, you think this is quite a depressing read, but it really isn't, and I think there are 2 reasons for that. Firstly is Rica's writing. It's kind of almost lyrical. She's got some really beautiful turns of phrase, and she's able to convey her emotions and the darker times in her life without the graphic details, but keeping the heart and the impact of those situations. I think partly this is due to her love of reading, and also because she always had the loving guiding presence of her grandmother while she was going through all these horrible times in her life. Secondly is that Rica has this capacity to be guided and filled with hope, and this is a hopeful book, and it's that uplifting quality that I think is why Rica wasn't broken by the things that she experienced. This book really drew me along, and I think my only quibble with it was the ending. I did kind of talk about this in my Dewey's 24-hour reading vlog, which I will link above and below. But I just felt not that I didn't want her to have a happy ending. Absolutely not. She completely deserved that. I just felt that in the telling, it became less about Rica and more about a man. And in that, she gives some of her power away and gives him the credit for her salvation, where really it's her spirit and her strength that has got her through all these bad times and allowed her into a place in her life where she could meet someone like this man. But this is a really heartening memoir, and that is just a quibble. I really enjoyed this book, and my last 4-star read was In the Time of Foxes by Lennan. This actually came out on the 23rd of August, but it has taken me a wee while to get round to it. And it was the title of this book that drew me into it, and there is a theme of foxes running through each of the short stories in this collection. I think it runs through all of them, but I didn't always pick up on it. And I'm reviewing it weeks after I read it, which isn't ideal, but even still I can remember quite a lot of the stories, and I think that speaks to the strength of this collection. As with most short story collections, there were some stories that I liked more than others, but in general I think she is a really talented writer. She is really good at capturing human nature and putting it on the page, and often in situations which are really compelling to read. So much so that I think some of these really could have been more than shorts, and I suppose that's kind of a good and a bad thing. Like, good because I wanted to stay with those stories, I wanted to read more of them, but I guess the negative in that is that the stories seem to end before they ended, if that makes sense. And I think that's quite common in short stories, to lack that resolution. But it happened so often in this collection that I began to wonder if it was just because she wasn't sure how to end the stories. But having said that, I thought she is a really good writer, and I would really love to read a novel by her. And this is one of the better short story collections that I've ever read. And then finally we have Michele Weldon's Act Like You're Having a Good Time, which came out on the 17th of September. This is a collection of personal essays of Michele reflecting on her life at the age of 61, and she covers loads of topics in this, from single motherhood and dealing with cancer to friendships and the accumulation of stuff that seems to happen over our lifetimes. But a big theme is her reflecting on dreams she hasn't accomplished and how she isn't where she thought she would be in life at this point. It's very much a look at the passing of time and being aware that there is less road in front of you than you have already travelled. And that might sound quite melancholic, but I think I found this quite a positive reading experience. Now that I'm in my mid-30s, I have sensed a shift in some of my reading choices, and I found myself looking more for, you know, the voices of wisdom and experience of women who are paving the way ahead of me. I'm not particularly scared of aging, but I am quite conscious of wanting to age well, and in that I don't mean like slapping miracle pill face creams on. I mean, I just want to age in a way that honours the joys that I still have ahead of me, but also that takes the knowledge and experience of other women so that I can better approach the less than joyous things that await me. And so voices like Weldon's are a real beacon to me. She's really personable, she's really honest, and it does feel like almost as if she's talking directly to you, but also at the same time she retains like a journalistic clarity that she has from her background as a journalist. And so you get this poignancy in a way with words that resonates, but also kind of like a bigger picture look, and you feel like you're in safe hands. What struck me, and again I spoke about this in my Drew's 24-hour readathon vlog, is that she does often throughout acknowledge that she lives quite a privileged life. Although she has had hardships, she's now in a place where she's living quite comfortably, but she doesn't see herself as the accomplished woman that she is. You know, she has been a journalist, she's written her own books, she's a lecturer, I think, and you know, she has achieved a lot, but even with that, she has not lived up to the potential or the person that she thought she was going to be, and that weighs quite heavily on her. And I thought that was such a lesson for us all, that no one is free of this disease we have of comparing ourselves to others, and that no one really has it all. We have so internalized that message of not being enough that even someone as accomplished and successful as Michele is still struggling with these feelings. And that was something that I really did find myself thinking on quite a lot after I read the book. Now, there is no real way to have it all. We should just enjoy what we do have. Easier said than done, I know. But that was just what this book kind of left me with thinking. I know she has published quite a lot of other essay collections dealing with different things throughout her life, and I definitely want to seek those out, because she's definitely, you know, she's the sort of woman that I want to learn from. So those are the new and recent releases that I read in October. Have you read any of them, or have I encouraged you to maybe give some of them a try? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're new to my channel, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you on board. But I think I've prattled on long enough now, so I hope whatever you're doing today, you have a great day, and I will speak to you soon. So